So in this session, we will try to understand the basics of HTML. So I will try to explain first some important points related to HTML, and later in the next sessions we will be understanding more about the HTML. First let me write some important points related to HTML. The first point is HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So you observe carefully, this HTML called as markup language. It is not a programming language. So then immediately you will get a doubt here. What is the difference between a programming language and a markup language? In general, the programming language supports variable declaration, and it supports data types and supports conditional statements like if, else if and all those things, and also it supports usually loops. But when it comes to markup languages, in general all these things are not supported. Next important point is HTML is case insensitive or not case sensitive. Next, HTML is considered as a presentation language. What does that presentation language in the sense? In general, if you want to display some data in a specific format, or if you want to display some graphical user interface, something like text boxes or the combo boxes or drop down lists or button controls or some other controls, in general you will be using HTML. So anyhow, we will be talking about the GUI later. But remember, HTML is considered as a presentation language. Next, so the HTML files extension is usually, you will observe either a .html or a .htm, both are valid, but in most of the cases I will be using .html. Next, HTML is considered as an error-free language. What does that mean? It means that though you are committing any mistakes while writing the HTML code, it will never give you any kind of errors, and hence it is simple to understand. So that is the reason why many people will think that it is easy to understand HTML. In fact, this assumption is correct only. So it is very easy to understand HTML. Okay. Now, after understanding all these points, let me show you the basic structure of an HTML file or HTML document. So remember, in general HTML files are considered as or called as documents also. Some people will be calling HTML files as HTML documents. Okay. So in case if you are creating any HTML file either with the extension .html or with the extension .htm, in that file definitely some tags are required. So let me write what tags are required inside the HTML file. So inside an HTML file, HTML tag is required, and within that head tag is required, and closing of head tag is required, and after this body tag is required, and for body tag also there must be a closing, and similar way for this HTML tag there must be a closing HTML tag. So in general your HTML file must contain these tags. Now let me explain what is the meaning of a tag. So remember, in the markup language terminology, if you place something in the angular bracket, so that something is technically called as a tag. Whatever you place in the angular bracket, that is technically called as tag. So here HTML is basically a tag. So inside that HTML tag we are having two important tags. What are those two tags? First one is header, or first one is head, and second one is body, BODY. So here also BODY. So I believe you understood. In general, inside the header or inside the head tag, you will be writing some HTML code. You no need to bother about what HTML code you will be writing, but in general inside the header you can able to write some HTML code, and even you can able to write some JavaScript code, and even if you want you can write some styles code. We will talk about this JavaScript code and styles code later, including HTML code. Similar way, inside the body tag also we are allowed to write HTML code, and we are allowed to write JavaScript code, and even we are allowed to write styles code. I believe you understood. So in the next sessions you will be understanding more about the HTML.